In this problem, we're asked to rank each of three substances based on their mass percent of carbon. In order to do that, we have to know something about mass percent. It would simply be, to calculate mass percent of carbon, you would figure out how many of the entire molar mass, what percentage of that is due just to carbon. So for instance, let's take caffeine, whose formula is C8H10N4O2. And I would find molar mass just like we normally would with carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. There's 8 carbons in that formula, and each carbon atom's atomic weight is 12, so that makes 96. There's 10 atoms of hydrogen, each of which have an atomic weight of 1. 4 atoms of nitrogen, each of which have an atomic weight of 14. And 2 atoms of oxygen, each of which have an atomic weight of 16. When you add all that up, you get a molar mass that's equal to 194. Okay, so then to find mass percent of that 194, how much of it was due just to the carbon? 96%. So to get mass percent of carbon, we would take 96 over 194. So the portion of the mass due to the carbon is the 96, and the overall mass is 194. And then to make it a percentage, multiply by 100%, which mathematically doesn't change anything. So if you work that out, it becomes 49.5%. So for the caffeine, the mass percent of carbon is 49.5%. Let's take the next compound, sucrose, whose formula is C12H22O11. And we find the molar mass just like you would always do. There's 12 atoms of carbon, each of which have an atomic weight of 12. 22 atoms of hydrogen, and 11 atoms of oxygen. If you add all that up, it equals 342. To get the mass percent of carbon, we're going to look at the portion of the total mass that's due just to the carbon and divide it by the total molar mass. So 144 divided by 342, and then to make it a percentage you would multiply by 100 at the end. And in the case of sucrose, it works out to be 42.1%. The third substance they asked us about was ethanol, whose formula is C2H5OH. We'll find the molar mass. There's actually 6 atoms of hydrogen. What's kind of funny about the formula here, they pull the second hydrogen listed, or the hydrogen that's not part of the H5, is actually, there's a reason why they list it separately. It's because, and we'll get into this later next semester. It's part of an alcohol group, and so it bonds entirely differently because it's bonded to the oxygen atom rather than the carbon atoms. Anyway, there's 6 hydrogens in total in that compound. There's 1 atom of oxygen. So if we add all that up, we get 46 grams per mole. To calculate the mass percent of the carbon, we'll consider the percentage of that molar mass that's due just to the carbon. So the 24.0 over 46.0, and then multiply by 100 to make it a percent, and you get, in this case, 52.2%. So let's review. We've got ethanol at a mass percent of carbon of 52.2. We've got sucrose with a mass percent of 42.1. And we've got caffeine with a mass percent of 49.5. So since they're asking us to rank these, we'd have to say, and they want us to go from lowest to highest because it's asking for increasing mass percent. So the lowest was 42.1. That was the sucrose. The next lowest was caffeine at 49.5%. And the highest mass percent of carbon was 52.2%, and that was found in ethanol.